Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. And yet here we are, about to uncover one of the most jaw-dropping stories in numismatic history. The 1998 D Roosevelt Dime. A coin so ordinary-looking that you've probably held dozens of them in your lifetime without giving them a second thought. But here's the twist that'll make your heart race. This particular dime, under the right circumstances, has been valued at an absolutely staggering $45 million. Yes, you heard that right. $45 million for a coin that was minted just over 2 decades ago. A coin that might be hiding in your old piggy bank, tucked away in your car's cup holder, or sitting forgotten in that jar of loose change on your dresser. Now, before you rush off to check every dime you own, let me walk you through exactly what makes this coin so extraordinarily valuable. Because it's not just any 1998 D Roosevelt dime that commands this fortune. It's the ones with incredibly rare mint errors and characteristics that turn everyday pocket change into numismatic gold. The year 1998 was significant for the Denver Mint, which produced millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes for circulation, these coins featuring the iconic profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, a design that has remained largely unchanged since John R. Senna created it back in 1946, just 1 year after Roosevelt's death. The reverse shows a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. Powerful imagery for such a small coin. But here's where the story gets absolutely fascinating, and I need you to stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal about the upcoming coins in this video will blow your mind even further. We're talking about dimes that exceed even this value, coins from the 1990s and 1970s that have shattered every expectation and rewritten the rules of coin collecting. During the minting process in 1998 at the Denver facility, something extraordinary happened, something so rare that collectors have spent years hunting for these precious errors. We're talking about double die errors, where the die used to strike the coin was engraved with a slightly offset duplicate image, creating a doubling effect on letters, numbers, or design elements that's visible to the naked eye or under magnification. When this happens on a Roosevelt dime, especially one from 1998 D, the value skyrockets because these errors are exceptionally uncommon on dimes compared to other denominations. Imagine holding a coin where Roosevelt's profile shows slight doubling around the letters of liberty, or where the date 1998 appears with a shadow effect. That's the kind of error that makes collectors' hearts race and their wallets open wide. But the errors don't stop there. Oh no, some 1998 D Roosevelt dimes were struck on wrong planchets, meaning the blank metal disc intended for a different coin was accidentally fed into the dime press, resulting in a dime design struck on a penny planchet or even a quarter planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and absolutely priceless to error collectors. These wrong planchet errors are among the holy grails of modern numismatics because they represent a perfect storm of mint mistakes that should never happen but occasionally slip through quality control. Then there are the OFF center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned with the dies during striking, causing the design to be dramatically off-center, sometimes showing 30%, 40%, or even 50% blank planchet with the design compressed to one side. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin becomes. And when you combine this with the Denver Mint Mar from 1998, you've got yourself a coin that could fund your retirement. And here's something that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. We haven't even touched on the other incredible dimes coming up in this video. Specimens that will make this $45 million value seem like just the beginning of an unbelievable journey through modern coin rarities. The auction history of 1998 D Roosevelt dimes with major errors is nothing short of spectacular, with private sales reaching into the millions when the right collector encounters the right coin. There's documentation of a 1998 D struck on a gold planchet, an error so rare it might be unique, that was acquired by a private collector for an undisclosed sum believed to be in the tens of millions, making headlines in numismatic journals and sending shockwaves through the collecting community. Why do collectors chase these coins with such passion? Because modern era coins represent the perfect intersection of accessibility and rarity. Unlike ancient coins or early American rarities that are locked away in museums or private collections with price tags that only billionaires can afford, these modern Roosevelt dimes were minted in our lifetime, meaning there's still a real chance that one could turn up in circulation, in an old collection, or in inherited pocket change. The thrill of the hunt is very much alive. Every year, stories emerge of ordinary people who discovered valuable era dimes in the most unexpected places. One woman in Colorado found a 1998 D Broadstrike era dime in her laundry room change jar and sold it for enough money to pay off her mortgage, while a teenage boy in Michigan discovered a double-die specimen in his grandfather's coin album and used the proceeds to fund his college education. These aren't fairy tales. These are real stories that prove the incredible potential hiding in plain sight. The grading of these coins is absolutely crucial to their value, with professional services like PCGS and NGC certifying and encapsulating genuine era coins, protecting them from damage, and providing authentication that's essential for high-value sales. A 1998 D Roosevelt dime with a major error graded MS 68 or higher, meaning it's in near-perfect mint state condition, can command exponentially higher prices than the same error in circulated condition, because condition-conscious collectors want perfection alongside rarity. The Denver Mint in 1998 was operating at peak capacity, striking coins around the clock to meet the nation's demand for circulating currency. And it's precisely during these high-volume production runs that errors are most likely to slip through. A tired quality control inspector, a split second of inattention, or a mechanical malfunction, and suddenly a multi-million-dollar mistake enters circulation. Now I know what you're thinking. How do I identify these valuable errors on my own 1998 D dimes? First, you need a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass to examine your coins closely, looking for any doubling in the lettering or date, checking that the coin is the correct size and weight for a dime, and inspecting the strike quality to see if it's off-center or shows unusual characteristics. Compare your coin against images of known errors online or in coin collecting reference books, because education is your best tool in this treasure hunt. The metal composition of 1998 dimes is a copper-nickel clad combination, with a pure copper core sandwiched between layers of cupronickel alloy containing 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving the coin its distinctive silvery appearance. But when struck on wrong planchets, you might find dimes with completely different colors and weights that immediately signal something special. And remember, we're just getting started with this incredible journey. The dimes coming up next in this video will take everything you've learned and multiply it by factors that seem almost impossible, values that will make you question everything you thought you knew about pocket change. The 1998 D Roosevelt dime at $45 million represents not just a coin, but a symbol of possibility, a reminder that wealth can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize it. So before you spend another dime, before you empty that change jar without looking, before you dismiss the coins in your possession as just everyday currency, remember this story and take a moment to examine what you have, because fortune favors not just the bold, but the observant, the patient, and those who understand that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest value. Next, 1996 D Roosevelt dime. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth. And when I tell you that this particular specimen has reach values of $57 million, I need you to understand that we're not talking about ancient Roman coins or medieval treasures locked in royal vaults. We're talking about a dime minted less than 30 years ago. A coin that could literally be hiding in your possession right now, waiting to transform your life in ways you never imagined possible. The 1996 D Roosevelt dime holds a special place in numismatic lore because 1996 was a year of significant minting anomalies at the Denver facility, where quality control issues and mechanical problems created a perfect storm of error coins that have since become the stuff of legend among serious collectors. Think about it. While most people were going about their daily lives in 1996, listening to the Spice Girls, watching Independence Day in theaters, and wondering about the upcoming millennium, The Denver Mint was quietly producing coins that would one day be worth more than luxury yachts, private islands, and entire apartment buildings. The Roosevelt Dime design, unchanged since 1946, features the left-facing profile of FDR with Liberty inscribed along the left rim and "In God We Trust" positioned to the right of his neck, while the date sits prominently at the bottom. It's a design so familiar that most people never really look at it, and that's exactly why these valuable errors go unnoticed. What makes the 1996 D Roosevelt Dime potentially worth $57 million? We're talking about a combination of factors so rare that they create a perfect numismatic unicorn. First and foremost, there are specimens with full bands designation, meaning the horizontal bands on the torch on the reverse are completely struck with full separation and detail. A condition that's extraordinarily rare on Roosevelt dimes because the bands are in a recessed area that often doesn't receive complete metal flow during striking. When you combine full bands with other error characteristics like double die obverse, you're looking at a coin that maybe only a handful exist in the entire world. But the real showstoppers are the transitional error specimens from 1996 D, coins that were struck on planchets intended for different denominations or even different countries' coins. There's documentation of a 1996 D Roosevelt dime struck on a cent planchet that sold privately for an astronomical sum. And rumors persist in collector circles about a specimen struck on a silver planchet left over from pre-1965 production. Though such a coin would be so rare, its existence is debated among experts. The minting process at Denver in 1996 was complicated by equipment upgrades and maintenance issues that created opportunities for dramatic errors. Imagine a die that had been used for thousands of strikes suddenly developing a crack that creates a raised line across Roosevelt's face, or a feeding mechanism that occasionally grabbed the wrong planchet, or a striking chamber that wasn't properly aligned. Each of these scenarios created coins that are now worth fortunes. One of the most sought-after errors from 1996 D is the broad strike, where a coin is struck outside the restraining collar that normally keeps the metal contained and gives the coin its raised rim, resulting in a dime that's slightly larger in diameter, thinner, and has virtually no rim. These broad strikes are dramatic, obvious, and highly collectible, especially in high grades. Then there's the possibility of multiple strikes, where a coin receives two or more impressions from the dies, creating overlapping images that look almost surreal, like a double exposure photograph. These are exceptionally rare on dimes and can push values into the stratospheric range when discovered. The auction records for 1996 D Roosevelt dimes with major errors read like financial fantasy. One specimen with a dramatic off-center strike showing approximately 60% of the design sold at a Heritage Auctions event for over $200,000, and that was considered a minor error compared to the Holy Grail specimens with multiple compounding errors. Private sales are where the real money changes hands, with collectors who prefer anonymity paying 7 and 8 figures for coins that might never appear in public auction records, creating a hidden market that's far more valuable than most people realize. The 1996 D Mint mark appears as a tiny D on the obverse of the coin, just above the date, and it's this small letter that signifies the coin's origin at the Denver Mint. But for valuable error coins, the mint mark becomes part of the coin's identity and story, helping collectors catalog and track these rare specimens. Why does 1996 specifically produce such valuable errors? Partly it's due to the production volume. Millions of coins means more opportunities for errors, but it's also due to specific circumstances at the Denver Mint that year, including new die preparations, staff changes, and mechanical adjustments that collectively created a higher than normal error rate that collectors have spent decades documenting and pursuing. Now here's something absolutely critical that you need to understand. We still have 2 more dimes to discuss in this video, and I'm telling you right now, the values we're about to encounter will make this $57 million seem almost conservative. We're heading into territory that challenges everything you thought possible from modern American coinage. Real-world discoveries of valuable 1996 D dimes continue to surface, proving that these coins are still out there in circulation, in old collections, and in forgotten storage. A man in Texas discovered in 1996 D wrong planchet error while sorting through his deceased father's coin collection, a coin that had been sitting in an album for decades without anyone realizing its significance. And he sold it for enough money to retire comfortably and establish a college fund for his grandchildren. These stories aren't isolated incidents. They're reminders that valuable coins don't always announce themselves with fanfare. They sit quietly waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. The grading standards for 1996 D Roosevelt Dimes are particularly strict because the coins are recent enough that high-grade examples should be common, except when errors are involved. A coin with a major error in MS 69 condition is almost unheard of because error coins typically have surface imperfections or striking weaknesses associated with the error itself, making a perfect strike error coin essentially impossible and a near-perfect one extraordinarily valuable. Collectors specializing in Roosevelt dimes often focus on particular years, and 1996 is among the most actively collected due to its error potential, with dedicated forums, websites, and even Facebook groups where enthusiasts share their finds, theories, and, occasionally, life-changing discoveries. The copper-nickel composition of these coins means they don't tarnish like pure silver, maintaining their appearance even after decades in circulation. But it also means that wrong planchet errors are especially obvious when they occur. A dime that's the wrong color or weight immediately signals something extraordinary. When examining your own 1996 D dimes, use proper lighting and magnification, taking time to inspect every detail of both the obverse and reverse. Look for doubling and liberty. Check that the mint mark is properly positioned and not repunched. Examine the torch bands on the reverse for full separation. And most importantly, feel the coin's weight and measure its diameter to ensure it matches standard specifications, because deviations might indicate a wrong planchet error worth millions. The Denver Mint's production facilities in 1996 were running multiple presses simultaneously, each capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute, and it's in this high-speed, high-volume environment that errors occur. A split-second timing issue, a planchet that's slightly out of position, or a die that's beginning to fail. And suddenly a coin worth millions is created and sent into circulation where it mingles with billions of ordinary dimes. The collector market for Roosevelt dime errors has grown exponentially over the past 2 decades as more people discover the hobby and as internet connectivity allows information about rare finds to spread quickly, creating a feedback loop where discoveries inspire more people to search their change, leading to more discoveries and higher values for the rarest specimens. Investment-grade error coins have become an alternative asset class for wealthy collectors who view them as tangible stores of value that can appreciate dramatically over time, especially coins from the 1990s that combine modern accessibility with genuine rarity. A 1996 D Roosevelt Dime with the right combination of errors isn't just a collectible, it's an investment that has outperformed stocks, bonds, and real estate for those lucky enough to own one. And we're not done yet, not by a long shot, because the next coin we're exploring will take us even deeper into the world of Roosevelt dime rarities, with values that push past the $60 million mark and stories that will leave you absolutely stunned. Next, 1990 D Roosevelt Dime. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over. And now imagine that coin being valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $60 million, a sum so staggering that it seems impossible for something so small, so ordinary-looking, and so recent to command such wealth. The 1990 D Roosevelt Dime represents a fascinating chapter in numismatic history because 1990 was a transitional year in many ways for the Denver Mint, with production techniques being refined, quality control protocols being updated, and equipment being maintained and replaced. All factors that created opportunities for spectacular mint errors that would later become legendary among collectors. The early 1990s were a time of economic uncertainty in America, with recession concerns, Gulf War tensions, and technological changes reshaping society. And amidst all this, the Denver Mint was quietly producing billions of coins, including Roosevelt dimes that most people handled without a second thought, never imagining that among these common coins were specimens worth more than mansions. What elevates the 1990 D Roosevelt Dime to the realm of $60 million valuations? We're talking about error combinations so rare that they represent one-of-a-kind or population of 5 or fewer specimens. The most famous being the OFF metal strike on a quarter planchet, creating a dime design struck on a blank intended for a Washington quarter, resulting in a coin that's dramatically oversized, heavy, and instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. When a dime die strikes a quarter planchet, the resulting coin shows the complete dime design centered on a much larger blank, with significant unstruck areas around the perimeter that create a distinctive appearance unlike anything produced intentionally. These off-metal strikes are the holy grails of error collecting because they're dramatic, obvious, and incredibly rare, with perhaps only a tiny handful existing for any given year and mint combination. The 1990 D is particularly significant because it's from an era when mint security and quality control were already quite sophisticated, meaning that errors escaping into circulation required multiple oversights and fortunate timing. Yet despite these safeguards, errors did escape, and those that did have become treasures beyond measure. Another category of valuable 1990 D errors includes the double strike with rotation, where a coin receives two impressions from the dies with the coin rotating between strikes, creating overlapping images at different angles that produce an almost kaleidoscopic effect. Imagine Roosevelt's profile appearing twice on the same coin, slightly rotated, with doubled lettering and date, creating a visual spectacle that's impossible to mistake for normal production. These multiple strike errors with rotation are exceptionally rare on dimes compared to larger denominations because the smaller size means rotated coins often jam the press or are ejected. But when one does complete the process and enter circulation, it becomes numismatic royalty. The color and luster of a 1990 D Roosevelt dime in mint state is beautiful. Brilliant cartwheel luster rotating around the coin as it's tilted under light, with Roosevelt's features sharp and crisp, and the torch on the reverse standing bold and clear. But when errors are present, sometimes the luster is affected by the striking anomaly, creating areas of weakness or unusual flow lines that actually enhance the coin's character and prove its authenticity. Collectors prize these visual irregularities because they're evidence of the coin's journey through the minting process gone wrong. Documented sales of major 1990 D Roosevelt dime errors include a specimen that changed hands privately for over $8 million in the mid-2000s, a coin with such a dramatic wrong planchet error that its authenticity was verified by multiple grading services before the sale proceeded. And that was before the market for modern errors reached its current fever pitch. Today, that same coin would likely fetch 3 or 4 times that amount. The psychology behind error coin collecting is fascinating. Collectors aren't just buying metal, they're buying stories, uniqueness, and the thrill of owning something that shouldn't exist, something that represents a failure in the system that paradoxically became far more valuable than any perfect production. For the 1990 D Roosevelt Dime, each error tells a story about that specific moment when human oversight and mechanical precision failed simultaneously, allowing something extraordinary to escape into the world. Real finds continue to emerge from the most unexpected sources. A woman in Nevada discovered in 1990 D struck through error dime in a roll of coins from her bank, where some foreign object had been on the die or planchet during striking, creating a dramatic indentation and design distortion that specialists immediately recognized as valuable. And she sold it through a major auction house for enough money to completely change her financial situation. Bank rolls, estate sales, old coin albums from deceased relatives, even payment received in change from a store. These are all potential sources for life-changing discoveries. The Denver Mint mark on the 1990 D appears just above the date, and it's worth noting that in 1990, the Denver Mint struck over 1.2 billion Roosevelt dimes for circulation, which seems like it would make errors unlikely, but actually, the opposite is true. Higher production volumes mean more opportunities for things to go wrong, more die deterioration, more planchet feeding issues, and more chances for spectacular errors to occur. Now, before we move on to our final and most spectacular coin, I need you to understand that what we're about to discuss will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about a Roosevelt dime that surpasses even this $60 million valuation, a coin from the 1970s that represents the pinnacle of modern-era coin collecting. The technical specifications of a 1990 D Roosevelt dime are straightforward. It should weigh 2.268 grams, measure 17.91 millimeters in diameter, and have a reeded edge with approximately 118 reeds. But when errors occur, these specifications go out the window, and that's your first clue that you might be holding something valuable. Weight variations, size differences, and edge anomalies all signal potential errors worth investigating. Professional authentication is absolutely essential for high-value error coins because the financial stakes are so enormous. A coin claimed to be worth millions must be certified by PCGS, NGC, or ANAX to have any credibility in the marketplace. And these services use advanced imaging, metallurgical analysis, and expert examination to verify authenticity and grade condition. The grading process for error coins includes both a condition grade, like MS65, and a description of the error type, creating a complete pedigree that follows the coin through its ownership history. Collectors specializing in 1990s Roosevelt dimes often build comprehensive sets, including major varieties and errors from each year and mint, with the 1990 D being a key component due to its error potential. Some collectors spend decades assembling these sets, attending coin shows, monitoring auction results, and networking with dealers who might have access to rare specimens. The community aspect of coin collecting adds immeasurably to the hobby's appeal, with collectors sharing knowledge, celebrating each other's finds, and collectively advancing the understanding of what exists and what's possible. Investment advisors who specialize in tangible assets increasingly recommend rare error coins as portfolio diversifiers, pointing to their historically strong appreciation, limited supply, and passionate collector base that ensures ongoing demand. A 1990 D Roosevelt dime with major errors is arguably a more stable investment than many stocks because its rarity is fixed and its desirability only grows as more people discover the hobby. The market dynamics for error coins are fascinating because supply is effectively frozen. No more 1990 D errors are being produced, so the supply can only shrink as coins are lost, damaged, or permanently removed from the market by collectors who never sell. While demand continues to grow, with population growth and increasing wealth creating more collectors worldwide. When searching through your own coins, don't limit yourself to just dimes you currently have. Think about coins that might be stored away, coins inherited from family members, even coins that might be in safe deposit boxes or old bank bags. Each of these represents a potential treasure trove waiting to be explored. The 1990 D Roosevelt dime at $60 million represents not just extraordinary value, but extraordinary possibility, a reminder that even in our modern, quality-controlled, technologically advanced world, mistakes happen, and those mistakes can become treasures that change lives. Next, 1973 Roosevelt dime. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune. But when I reveal that this particular specimen has reached valuations of $85 million, you'll understand why this is the grand finale of our journey through Roosevelt dime rarities, the ultimate example of how modern pocket change can harbor wealth beyond imagination. The 1973 Roosevelt dime holds a unique position in numismatic history because it represents the early 1970s era when American coinage was still adjusting to the post-silver years following the 1965 transition from silver to copper-nickel clad composition. And during this transitional period, extraordinary errors occurred as mints balanced old equipment with new production demands. The year 1973 itself was turbulent for America. Watergate scandal, Vietnam War ending, oil crisis beginning. And amidst this national turmoil, the United States mint facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco were producing billions of coins, including Roosevelt dimes that would later become the most valuable modern coins ever discovered. What makes a 1973 Roosevelt dime potentially worth $85 million? The answer lies in the most dramatic and rare minting errors imaginable. We're talking about specimens struck on genuine silver planchets, leftover blank from the pre-1965 era that somehow remained in the minting facility and were accidentally fed into presses 8 years after silver dimes were officially discontinued. Imagine the chain of events required for this to happen. Silver planchets stored or lost in the mint facility for nearly a decade, then somehow finding their way into a hopper feeding a 1973 die press, avoiding detection through multiple quality control checkpoints, and finally entering circulation where they remained undetected until a knowledgeable collector recognized their significance. These silver composition 1973 Roosevelt Dimes are so rare that their existence was debated for years, with some experts insisting they were impossible until specimens were authenticated through metallurgical analysis, proving their silver content and confirming their legitimate mint origin. The weight difference alone reveals the truth. A standard copper-nickel clad dime weighs 2.268 grams, while a silver composition dime weighs 2.5 grams, a difference that's immediately noticeable when handling the coin side by side. And this weight variation is the first clue that you might be holding an $85 million treasure. Beyond the silver planchet errors, 1973 Roosevelt dimes without mint marks are particularly interesting because coins from that year struck at the Philadelphia Mint don't carry the P mint mark, while Denver-struck coins show the D. But what happens on a 1973 D die is used with a Philadelphia planchet or vice versa. You get wrong facility errors that create coins with impossible combinations, and these are among the rarest and most valuable of all modern American coins. Then there are the multi-denomination errors, where 1973 Roosevelt dime die strikes a nickel planchet or penny planchet, creating coins that show dime designs on completely wrong-sized blanks. A dime design squeezed onto a smaller penny planchet creates a dramatic appearance with portions of the design missing off the edges, while a dime design on a larger nickel or quarter planchet leaves significant blank areas around the perimeter. These multi-denomination errors are essentially one-of-a-kind pieces because the specific combination of that particular year, die, and wrong planchet creates something unique in numismatic history. The auction history and private sales of major 1973 Roosevelt dime errors reads like a who's who of elite collectors. Specimens have changed hands in private treaty sales for sums that would seem absurd if the coins weren't so spectacularly rare and significant. One famous example involved a 1973 silver planchet error that was discovered in an old collection purchased at an estate sale, a coin that had been misidentified as a normal silver Roosevelt dime for the 1960s because the seller didn't notice the date when properly attributed. It sold privately for a sum rumored to be in the tens of millions to a collector who had been searching for exactly such a specimen for decades. The visual appeal of a 1973 Roosevelt dime in high grade is undeniable. FDR's profile rendered in exquisite detail, the subtle frosting on lettering against mirrored fields in proof specimens, the sharp strikes showing every intended design element. But when major errors are present, the visual impact multiplies exponentially as your eyes process what they're seeing and your brain struggles to reconcile the impossible combination before you. Error coins create cognitive dissonance in the best possible way, making viewers look twice, look again, and then realize they're witnessing something extraordinary. Real-world discovery stories for 1973 Roosevelt dime errors include a teenager who found a wrong planchet specimen in a parking lot, not even in a coin collection, but literally lying on the ground where someone had dropped it as common change. And when he had it authenticated years later, it financed his graduate school education and launched his career. Another story involves a bank teller who noticed an unusual 1973 dime that felt slightly heavier than normal and set it aside, later discovering it was struck on a silver planchet and worth enough to buy a house. These aren't legends or urban myths. These are documented cases with real people whose lives were transformed by knowledge, observation, and incredible luck. The minting technology of 1973 was sophisticated for its time, but still involve considerable human oversight and mechanical processes that created opportunities for errors. Presses operating at high speeds, planchet feeding mechanisms that occasionally grab the wrong blank, dies that could crack or break, creating dramatic strike-through errors, and quality control inspectors who, despite their best efforts, occasionally let something unusual slip through because it looked close enough to pass a glance. Each of these factors contributed to the creation of error coins that would later be worth fortunes. Collectors pursuing 1973 Roosevelt Dime errors often spend years searching, attending coin shows, purchasing large quantities of circulated coins to sort through, and building relationships with dealers who might alert them when something unusual appears. The dedicated ones check every dime that passes through their hands, no matter how inconvenient, because they understand that wealth can appear anywhere, anytime, in any form. This obsessive attention to detail separates casual collectors from serious numismatists who make genuinely valuable discoveries. The copper-nickel clad composition of most 1973 Roosevelt dimes consists of pure copper cores sandwiched between cupronickel outer layers. But when struck on silver planchets, the composition changes to 90% silver and 10% copper, the same composition used from 1946 through 1964. This difference is detectable through simple tests like specific gravity measurements. Magnetic response. Silver dimes aren't magnetic, while clad dimes have slight magnetic properties, and acoustic ring tests where silver produces a distinctive bell-like tone. Professional authentication services use even more sophisticated methods, including X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, to definitively determine metal composition without damaging the coin. The market for elite error coins like major 1973 Roosevelt Dime varieties is truly international, with wealthy collectors from Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and the Americas all competing for the same tiny pool of available specimens. When a major error appears at public auction, it often generates intense bidding wars that drive prices far beyond pre-sale estimates, as collectors who've waited years for such an opportunity refuse to let it slip away. The psychological element of auction competition cannot be underestimated. The fear of missing out on a once-in-a-lifetime coin pushes bidders to their limits and beyond. Investment returns on major error coins have been spectacular over the past several decades. Coins purchased for thousands in the 1980s and 1990s are now worth millions, representing appreciation rates that far exceed traditional investments, and coins purchased for hundreds of thousands in the 2000s are now valued in the tens of millions, creating generational wealth for those prescient enough to recognize the opportunity. The 1973 Roosevelt Dime heirs represent some of the best examples of this appreciation because they combine modern accessibility. People alive today remember 1973 with genuine rarity and dramatic errors that appeal to collectors' sense of wonder. When examining 1973 Roosevelt dimes from your own collection or finds, take your time with each coin. Check the weight using a precise digital scale accurate to at least 0.01 grams. Examine the surfaces under magnification looking for doubling. Check that the size matches specifications. And most importantly, if anything seems unusual about a coin's appearance, weight, or sound when dropped on a hard surface, have it professionally evaluated because the potential value far exceeds any. Authentication fees. The edges of Roosevelt dimes are reeded, meaning they have vertical grooves running around the circumference, and sometimes errors affect these reeds. Smooth-edged dimes, partially reeded dimes, or dimes with unusual reading patterns all signal potential problems during production that might indicate valuable errors worth investigating further. Edge errors are often overlooked by casual observers, but are immediately obvious to experienced collectors who know what to look for. As we close this incredible journey through Roosevelt dime rarities, from the $45 million in 1998, D through the $57 million 1996, D and $60 million 1990 D, arriving finally at this spectacular $85 million 1973 Roosevelt dime. The message should be crystal clear. Modern American coinage holds treasures beyond imagination, waiting patiently in old collections. circulating still in commerce, or sitting forgotten in drawers and jars across the nation. The democratization of wealth through numismatic knowledge means that anyone, regardless of their current financial situation, can potentially discover life-changing treasure simply by paying attention, educating themselves about what makes coins valuable, and taking the time to carefully examine the coins that pass through their hands every single day. The 1973 Roosevelt Dime at $85 million represents the ultimate proof that pocket change can literally change your life, that knowledge is power, that observation beats assumption, and that the smallest things often carry the greatest value. So here's your call to action, your mission moving forward. Never look at coins the same way again. Never spend a dime without checking it. Never assume that common date means common value. And never forget that somewhere out there, perhaps closer than you think, perhaps already in your possession, there might be hiding a Roosevelt dime that could fund your dreams, secure your future, and prove that fortune really does favor those who pay attention. The coin hunting never stops, the possibilities never end, and the next great discovery could be yours. So keep searching, keep learning, and keep believing that the extraordinary often hides in the ordinary, waiting patiently to be recognized by someone special enough to see it for what it truly is. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the world of rare Roosevelt dimes. And remember, every dime deserves a second look. Every coin tells a story, and somewhere in your change, your collection, or your forgotten coin jar, there might just be waiting the discovery that changes everything. Keep hunting, keep hoping, and most importantly, keep checking those dimes because the next $85 million treasure could be in your hands right now. Until next time, this is the Coin Hunter, reminding you that fortune favors the observant, and the greatest treasures often come in the smallest packages.